Microsoft is taking another great feature away. Xbox's newest competitor may not be who you think. Let's discuss. Just a reminder, if you take a look down at the description below, I have links for all sorts of Xbox gear. I've been talking a lot about the ultimate wired Xbox controller by 8BitDo. That's down there as well. You can buy it through Best Buy. If you want to get in on this new generation of Xbox cloud gaming, I also have some links for some Samsung TVs that support the Xbox Game Pass app that they're coming out with. Let's talk about Death Stranding coming to Game Pass. Now, when I first heard about this, it was an article that was titled, Xbox Game Pass seemingly getting PlayStation exclusive. And now, when people usually put out these articles, they're usually referring to a small game or a game that I don't really have a lot of interest in. But it's always an interesting headline, right? Because it's like, whoa, Xbox is getting a PlayStation exclusive? What's that about? Well, this time it was actually really big news. They were talking about Death Stranding coming to PC Game Pass. This is something that they've been trying to tease for a couple of weeks now. The Game Pass account on Twitter posted this, where it was just seemingly like just a nice looking landscape kind of picture. But then someone did the homework, as someone always does. That's what I love the internet for. And sure enough, just a couple of days ago on the Xbox Wire, they confirmed that Death Stranding is coming to PC Game Pass. That is the important part of the story. It is not coming to console Game Pass, just PC Game Pass. And another important thing to note, it's not the director's cut. It's just the base game. It is, well, the PC version of the game that came out in 2020. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have mixed feelings about this. When the game came out, critically, it was reviewed very well, but a lot of people are out here saying, oh, it's just a walking simulator. All you do is walk. There's nothing interesting about the game. A few of my takeaways from this is, number one, Microsoft's relationship with Kojima Productions seems to be pretty good. Obviously, they got Death Stranding to come to PC Game Pass. And we know that Microsoft is working with Kojima Productions on an unannounced, kind of mysterious title that involves the cloud in some way. We don't really know. Second of all, this story is pretty juicy. I mean, there's other reports that are coming out and saying that Sony had nothing to do with Death Stranding coming to PC Game Pass, which comes in the midst of accusations from Microsoft saying that PlayStation pays developers to keep their games off of Game Pass and tries to basically discourage other developers from working with Microsoft, which is kind of true. Like, seeing what Sony's done in the past with games that they barely had anything to do with, keeping them off of Xbox, it's pretty surprising seeing Death Stranding on PC Game Pass. Like I said, it's not on console Game Pass, so it's not the craziest story you're ever going to hear. But yeah, still pretty surprising that a Sony-owned IP is coming to a subscription service owned by Microsoft. Again, this is only coming to PC Game Pass, so it's coming on August 23rd. It'll be on PC Game Pass by the time this video goes up. Do not watch this and then go to your Xbox Series X or your Xbox One X, whatever, look through your Game Pass catalog and then go, what the heck, Ray? Death Stranding isn't on here. What's going on? You're a dirty, filthy liar. So now that I've hit you with some good news, let's hit you with some bad news. I'm talking about High on Life being delayed from its initial release date in October to December 6th, a total of 6 weeks. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Squanch Games over on their Twitter posted this statement. They said, as we work to polish the best possible gaming experience for High on Life, the game's release date will be moved to December 13th, 2022. High on Life will be available via Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, Windows PCs day one, and on Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass, and through Xbox Cloud Gaming. Now, all I can say about this is, Of course this game got delayed. Like, why did I expect anything else given what's been happening over the past 2 years? But this is especially disappointing because I was big capping for this game. I was like, oh my god, October is going to be crazy. We're going to be feasting as Xbox Game Pass fans. We're getting High on Life, Plague Tale Requiem, Scorn, Persona 5 Royal, all in the month of October. What can go wrong? And of course, delays delays are what can go wrong. And yes, I know, delays are inevitable. It's not that bad. It's not like they're delaying it from October of this year to December of next year or anything crazy like that. But it's always disappointing. That's never something that you want to hear as a fan. This is something that I've been looking forward to since I saw the showcase in June from Xbox and Bethesda. I said, whoa, this looks like a really entertaining, interesting take on the FPS genre. I can't wait to play it. Oh, it's coming out October. Awesome, sick. It's going to be an amazing month. Maybe it works out better this way rather than Xbox doing this huge dump of games in October between all the titles I just listed, and rather kind of spacing it out a little bit. Okay, so I'll get to play Scorn, Plague Tale, Requiem in October. And then, obviously, we know the big story in gaming in this holiday season, starting in November, is going to be God of War Ragnarok. So I am a little worried that God of War is just going to be dominating the news cycle, and then this game comes out, and even if it's good, it's still not going to be as talked about as God of War. But again, of course, this is how I am repaid. I am always so optimistic, so hyped, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, just kidding. Here's something to disappoint you. Here's something to humble you a little bit, Ray. Either way, Microsoft has some work to do. They got a little bit of work to do in order to stay in the news cycle, like I said, with God of War coming very, very soon in the month of November. They may be getting a little bit of help, though. I'm talking about Ubisoft Plus coming to Xbox consoles. Finally, this is something that they've been talking about for a long time. It's something that they teased all the way back at the beginning of this year. Now, for those of you who do not know, Ubisoft Plus is yet another subscription service that Ubisoft is trying to push out. It is basically EA Play. For a monthly fee, it gives you access to all of the Ubisoft library. Far Cry, any Tom Clancy game like the Ghost Recon series, Assassin's Creed, of course. I think Riders Republic will also be on there as well, I'm not sure. Next up, let's talk about your Xbox achievements. So me personally, I haven't really been big into achievement hunting in a very long time, but I saw this article on trueachievements.com saying that your Xbox 360 achievements were disappearing mysteriously, and it's very straightforward. They literally put this up just a couple of hours ago. They said, players are reporting that their Xbox 360 achievements are no longer showing when viewing their profile on the Xbox app, xbox.com, and on Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One consoles. Now, usually when something like this comes up in the news cycle, when I see articles about issues like this, I'm thinking of, I don't know, like the Xbox lockout or like these DRM issues that people were experiencing. Usually I'm unaffected, but I was like, you know what, let me just check this out. So I opened up my Xbox app and I was looking through achievements, and there were some Xbox 360 games that were still there. They were still being tracked, they were still being displayed. So I was like, okay, whatever, as long as my Oblivion achievements are still there. In my 15 years, I believe, of having my Xbox Live account, Lord Janitor, I have only 100%ed one game, and that's The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I'm not sure why. I think at the time, me and my friend were like hell-bent on just exploring every nook and cranny of this game. We were so mesmerized by the open world of it. But yeah, it's the only game I've 100%ed, collected every single achievement, so I was like, well, okay, as long as that's still there, I'm cool. I'm looking through, and it was not there. It was missing, guys, and I was so disappointed because I was like, I want people to see this. It's a source of pride for myself. I put in the time to hunt down every achievement in that game. I did it. I want people to know about it. I want people to know that I put in the work. Now, Xbox and Microsoft, they have yet to acknowledge this issue, but the good news is my overall gamer score is not affected. It's still the same. It's just not displaying some achievements that I've earned in some games. But according to this article from True Achievements, all of your achievements still show up on their website if you have your profile linked. So I was like, bet, let me see if it's still there. So I linked my Xbox account, I created a True Achievements account, and sure enough, thank God, it was still there. And my BioShock achievements were there, which are not displayed on my Xbox console or on the Xbox app. I'm sure that this is just temporary. Sometimes we do have an achievement outage, but the last time we had an achievement outage, some people had to get their achievements all over again. And I am not trying to do that, especially with all my old 360 games. At the end of the day, probably not the worst thing to happen. Obviously, my Xbox runs just fine. All the aspects of my profile, my Xbox Live Profile are just fine, but this made me realize that achievements are a lot bigger deal than I give them credit for. I was like, the thought of losing all of my Oblivion achievements from, what was I playing that game, like 2008, 2007, all those years ago, it made me feel, I'm attached to these things, man. I developed a sentimental attachment to these achievements, to the work that I put in, to the memories I gained trying to get those achievements. So yes, a small problem, but hopefully it's something that they fix soon, because achievements, they're a lot better than I give them credit for. Netflix is going to be Xbox's biggest competitor. Ooh. I say this because Xbox is apparently looking to create a cloud gaming division very similar to Xbox Cloud Gaming, very similar to PlayStation Now. This all stems, like a lot of these juicy news stories do, from a job listing that Netflix put out. So apparently they're looking for a senior software engineer. Now, for those of you who do not know, Netflix already has a gaming division. They already have a couple of 8-bit games centered around a couple of IPs that they have, Stranger Things, for example. But clearly this job listing suggests that they're beefing up for something more. They're getting a little bit more ambitious. Now, there are a couple of things that come to mind when I see this. There is a school of thought, I feel, where it's like, Netflix, you should just stay in your lane and focus on what you're doing, because from my understanding, last we heard, Netflix was struggling a little bit. They were losing subscribers. Their investors weren't happy. Is this a thing that they need to be focusing on right now? I don't really know. Second of all, we all know that they played a huge part in the cultural revolution, which was streaming versus cable, but video games is an entirely different business. A lot of these companies have learned that the hard way. I'm thinking about Google Stadia. They were like, yeah, we have all these ideas, we're gonna make our own games, yada yada yada, and then they're like, actually, you know what, we're just gonna be a game streaming service, a cloud streaming service. Game development is a whole different beast. It's totally different than greenlighting a bunch of like terrible reality TV shows, low budget reality TV shows, and then just cashing in. Now, I'm not saying that Netflix doesn't have good stuff. Obviously, we gotta respect them for putting out Stranger Things. I love Narcos. I love The Witcher. I love the video game stuff that they do too, Arcane, Castlevania. But developing games, that's a whole different beast. But on the other end, it could be a really smart idea on their end, because they have a lot of IPs that they can make video games out of, and that people would buy, or at least subscribe to their service. Any Stranger Things video game people would freak out over. And unfortunately, we live in a culture that is like super obsessed with certain IPs. How many times have you heard someone tell you, hey, Xbox, they need something like Spider-Man. They need like a superhero. They need like a franchise like Uncharted or something like that. And whether you like it or not, Netflix has a ton of properties like that, starting with Stranger Things or Squid Games, the game, whatever. We also know that Netflix has a pretty decent server capacity or server structure. I did a little bit of research into it, and they were saying that they developed it over 10 years, invested, I want to say like $10 billion or something like that. That's why shows never crash, even though there's like a high demand for one, like Stranger Things, of course. So in a weird way, they could provide a pretty stable gaming experience if they chose to go further with cloud gaming. Either way, Netflix gaming is still very, very, it's in its infancy. And it will take, obviously, years to build themselves up to an actual true competitor to Xbox or even PlayStation. Anyway, guys, that's all the news I have today. Thanks for joining in. Follow me on Twitter at StayXboxReady, and I'm on TikTok as well, so follow me there. Thanks so much for joining in, and we'll see you in the next video.